The stars had always belonged to the Zephyrians. For 3,000 years, their ships had ruled the galaxy like kings ruling their kingdom. Their vessels moved through space with grace and power, each one a masterpiece of technology that other. Races could only dream of building. Admiral Kextar stood on the bridge of his mighty warship, the Sovereign Dawn. The ship was huge, bigger than a small city back on his homeworld. Its walls gleamed with a silver light that seemed to come from within the metal itself. Energy shields wrapped around the hull like invisible armor, protecting it from any danger the universe might throw at it. Kextar was old, even by Zephyrian standards. His blue skin had turned darker with age, and the tentacles that grew from his head moved slowly as he thought. He had commanded ships for over 200 years. In all that time, he had never met a species that could challenge Zephyrian power. Bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. His crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They knew their jobs well. They had done this many times before. Find a new species, demand their surrender, and add another. Race to the Zephyrian Empire. "Admiral," called out Communications Officer Zekelin from her station. "We are receiving the daily reports from the outer systems." Kextar walked over to her station. His feet made no sound on the smooth metal floor. "What news do you have for me?" Zekelin's large black eyes scanned the data flowing across her screen. 3 new planets have joined the Empire this week. The Corvani system has agreed to our mining contracts. And there is something else, sir. What is it? Our scouts have found a new species in the outer rim. They call themselves humans. They come from a small blue planet in a system with only 1 star. Kextar's tentacles moved with interest. "Tell me about them." "They are very primitive, Admiral. They have only just learned how to travel faster than light. Their ships are made of simple metal. They use chemical rockets and basic energy sources. Our scientists say they are at least 500 years behind our technology." Commander Velthax, Kextar's second-in-command, laughed from his position near the tactical display. "Another primitive race? How boring. Shall we simply send them the standard surrender message and be done with it?" Kextar considered this. The standard procedure was simple. When they found a new species, they would demand immediate surrender. Most races took one look at Zephyrian ships and gave up without a fight. Those who refused were quickly destroyed by weapons they could not understand or defend against. "How many ships do they have?" Kextar asked. Zekelin checked her data again. "Our scouts report seeing only a few dozen vessels. Most of them appear to be cargo ships or exploration vessels. We have detected one that might be a military ship, but it is very small compared to our standards." "Very well," Kextar decided. "Set course for their space. We will make contact with this human military vessel. It has been too long since we added a new species to our collection." The Sovereign Dawn turned toward the outer rim of the galaxy. Its massive engines pushed the ship through space faster than light itself. Inside the ship, 3,000 Zephyrian crew members went about their daily tasks, unaware that they were about to make history. Far away, in a different part of space, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UNS Defiant. Morrison was a man in his early 40s, with short brown hair and steady gray eyes. He had served in Earth's Navy for 20 years before joining the new space fleet. The Defiant was humanity's newest destroyer. It was small by galactic standards, only 300 meters long. Its hull was made of steel and ceramic armor. The ship's nuclear reactors provided power for its engines and weapons. To human eyes, it was a beautiful and powerful vessel. To the Zephyrians, it would look like a primitive metal box floating in space. "Captain," called Lieutenant Amy Foster from the sensor station, "I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors." Morrison walked over to her station. "The bridge. was cramped compared to Zephyrian standards, but it felt comfortable to the human crew. "What do you see, Lieutenant?" "There's a large object approaching our position. It's big, sir. Much bigger than anything we've ever built." Morrison felt his heart start to beat faster. This was humanity's first deep space patrol. They had been sent out to explore new star systems and look for signs of intelligent life. The question of whether humans were alone in the universe was about to be answered. "How big?" Morrison asked. Foster checked her readings twice before answering. "At least 3 times our size, Captain. Maybe bigger. And, sir, it's moving faster than should be possible." Chief Engineer Tony Blake's voice came over the communication system from the engine room. "Captain, I'm reading some very strange energy signatures. Whatever that thing is, it's using technology we don't understand." Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He was not just a ship captain anymore. He was about to become humanity's first ambassador to an alien race. Everything he said and did in the next few hours might determine the future relationship between humans and whatever species was approaching them. "All hands," Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. "This is the captain. We are about to make first contact with an alien species. I want everyone to remain calm and professional. We represent all of humanity today." The crew of the Defiant prepared themselves as best they could. They had trained for this moment, but training could not prepare them for the reality of meeting. Beings from another world dot in space, the two ships moved toward each other like pieces on a cosmic game board. Neither crew knew that this meeting would change the galaxy forever. The moment of first contact arrived with the soft beep of an incoming transmission. Lieutenant Amy Foster looked up from her sensor station with wide eyes. "Captain, we're receiving a signal from the alien vessel. It's in English, sir." "Captain." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. How could aliens speak English? "Put it on the main speakers, Lieutenant." The voice that filled the bridge was cold and mechanical, clearly coming through some kind of translation device. "Primitive vessel of the species, known as humans. You have entered space, claimed by the Zephyrian Confederation. I am Admiral Kekstar, of the Warship Sovereign Dawn. You will surrender your vessel immediately and prepare to accept the authority of our empire. You have one of your time units to comply with this order. Failure to surrender will result in the complete destruction of your ship." The bridge fell silent. Morrison could hear his own heartbeat in the quiet that followed. The aliens' message was clear and threatening. They expected humanity to simply give up without a fight. "Should I respond, Captain?" asked Communications Officer Lieutenant Dan Roberts. Morrison held up his hand. "Not yet. I need to think about this." He turned to his first officer. "Commander Hayes, call a meeting in the briefing room. Senior staff only." 5 minutes later, the senior officers of the Defiant sat around a small metal table in the ship's briefing room. The walls were lined with displays showing technical data about their ship and the alien vessel they faced. Commander Lisa Hayes, Morrison's second in command, spoke first. "Sir, their ship is massive. Our sensors show it's at least 10 times heavier than the Defiant. The energy readings we're getting suggest weapons that could destroy us in seconds." Chief Engineer Tony Blake nodded grimly. "Our armor is good, Captain, but it's just steel and ceramic plates. Their weapons appear to use some kind of pure energy technology. We've never seen anything like it." Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker, the ship's tactical officer, pulled up a comparison chart on the main display. "Look at this size difference. We're like a rowboat next to a battleship. If we try to fight them, we'll be destroyed." Morrison studied the faces of his officers. He could see fear in their eyes, but he could also see something else. These were military personnel who had sworn to defend humanity. None of them were suggesting surrender. What about running? Morrison asked. "Can we escape?" Blake considered this. Our fusion engines are reliable, Captain. They might be primitive compared to alien technology, but they're fast enough to get us back to Earth. We could warn our people about this threat. How long would that take? Hayes asked. At maximum speed. About 6 months to reach Earth. Morrison leaned back in his chair. 6 months was a long time. By then, the aliens might have found Earth on their own. But there was something else bothering him about the alien message. Did anyone else notice how the alien admiral spoke to us? Morrison asked. Parker frowned. What do you mean, sir? He called us primitive. He demanded our surrender without even trying to negotiate. He gave us an ultimatum, like we were children who had misbehaved. Hayes understood where her captain was going. You think they don't respect us? I think they see us as insects, Morrison replied. Something to step on or ignore. If we run away now, we prove them right. Earth needs to know what we're capable of, not just what we're afraid of. Back on the Sovereign Dawn, Admiral Kextar was growing impatient. The human ship had not responded to his ultimatum. They were just sitting there, apparently doing nothing. Perhaps they do not understand our message, suggested Communications Officer Zekelin. Their technology might not be advanced enough to decode our transmission properly. Commander Velfax laughed. Or perhaps they are too frightened to respond. Look at their ship, Admiral. It is a crude metal box with chemical rockets attached. They must realize they have no hope against us. Kextar studied the human vessel on his main display. It was certainly primitive looking. The hull was covered with what appeared to be simple metal plates. He could see engine exhausts that glowed with the orange light of chemical combustion. There were small weapon turrets on the hull, but they looked like toys compared to Zephyrian plasma arrays. Their behavior is strange. Kextar mused. Most species either surrender immediately or attempt to flee when they see our ships. These humans are doing neither. Should we fire a warning shot? Asked Weapons Officer Krendel. A small plasma burst near their ship might help them understand their situation. Kextar considered this. A demonstration of power often convinced. Stubborn species to surrender without bloodshed. Very well. Fire a controlled plasma burst across their bow. Make sure they can see it clearly. The Sovereign Dawn's main weapon array charged with power. Energy that could melt asteroids built up in the ship's plasma chambers. When the weapon fired, it created a brilliant flash of light that could be seen across the star system. The plasma burst passed just in front of the Defiant's nose. The energy was so intense that it overloaded the human ship's sensors for several seconds. When the displays cleared, the crew stared in shock at the readings. Captain, Foster said in a shaky voice, that energy burst contained more power than our entire reactor produces in a month. If it had hit us directly, we'd be vapor, Blake finished. Morrison felt the fear ripple through his crew. The alien demonstration had worked exactly as intended. It showed the humans just how outmatched they were. But instead of making Morrison want to surrender, it made him angry. They're trying to scare us, Morrison said calmly. They want us to give up without a fight. Maybe we should, Parker suggested quietly. Captain, we can't fight something like that. Morrison stood up from his captain's chair. His gray eyes were hard as steel. Lieutenant Commander Parker, how many people live on Earth? About 12 billion, sir. And how many human colonies are there in space? 17, sir? Maybe 20 million people total. Morrison nodded. So if we surrender to these aliens, we're not just giving up our ship. We're potentially giving up the freedom of 12 billion human beings. We're deciding the future of our entire species. The bridge crew listened carefully to their captain's words. They all knew he was right. But sir, Hayes said, we're just one ship. What can we possibly do against their technology? Morrison smiled grimly. We're going to show them that humans don't give up. We're going to teach them that primitive doesn't mean weak." He turned to the communication station. "Roberts, open a channel to the alien ship." "Channel open, sir." Morrison's voice was calm and steady as he spoke. "Admiral Kekstar, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Nations ship Defiant. We are not your subjects, and we do not recognize your authority over human space. If you want our surrender, you're going to have to take it." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. The crew of the Defiant had just declared war on an enemy they could not possibly defeat. But in that moment, they all felt something that the aliens could not understand. With all their advanced technology, they felt pride. The silence that followed Captain Morrison's defiant message seemed to stretch across the void of space itself. On the bridge of the Defiant, every crew member waited for the alien response they knew would come. No one moved. No one spoke. They had just challenged an enemy that could destroy them with ease. Aboard the Sovereign Dawn, Admiral Kekstar stared at his communication display in disbelief. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian expansion, no primitive species had ever refused their surrender demand. Most races begged for mercy. Others tried to flee. None had ever told the mighty Zephyrian fleet to come and take what they wanted. Did they just refuse us? Asked Commander Velfax, his voice filled with confusion. "It appears so," Kekstar replied slowly. His tentacles moved in patterns that showed his growing irritation. These humans seemed to misunderstand their situation. Communications. Officer Zekelin checked her translation systems. "Admiral, the translation is correct. The human captain clearly rejected our authority and challenged us to take their ship by force." Kekstar had ruled through fear and overwhelming power for so long that he had forgotten what defiance looked like. The smaller races of the galaxy had learned not to resist Zephyrian demands. This human response was something entirely new. "Perhaps they are simply too primitive to understand the difference in our capabilities," suggested Weapons Officer Krendel. "Should I charge the main plasma arrays and destroy them quickly?" "No," Kekstar said after a moment of thought. "I want to see what they think they can do. This is interesting." On the Defiant, Captain Morrison was addressing his crew over the ship's communication system. His voice carried to every corner of the vessel, from the bridge to the engine. "Room to the weapons bay. All hands, this is the captain. In a few minutes, we're going to be in a fight for our lives. The enemy ship is bigger than us, stronger than us, and more advanced than us. By every logical measure, we should lose this battle, but we have something they don't understand. We have the determination to never give up." In the engine room, Chief Engineer Tony Blake pushed the ship's nuclear reactors to maximum power. Warning lights flashed as systems operated beyond their normal limits. "Come on, old girl," he muttered to his ship. "Show them what human engineering can do." In the weapons bay, Gunner's Mate First Class Carl Murphy ran final checks on the Defiant's main weapon. The electromagnetic railgun was humanity's answer to energy weapons. It used powerful magnetic fields to accelerate metal projectiles to incredible speeds. Murphy called Ensign Paul Rivera from the weapons control station. "The captain wants maximum power to the railgun." Murphy grinned as he worked. "These aliens want to see what primitive looks like? Let's show them." The railgun was a simple weapon in concept, but brilliant in execution. It fired tungsten projectiles using electromagnetic force. The projectiles were small, no bigger than a man's fist, but they traveled at a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit something, they released tremendous kinetic energy. On the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker was analyzing the alien ship's structure. "Captain, their vessel appears to use energy shields for protection." "I'm not seeing any physical armor plating," Morrison nodded. "That makes sense. If all the weapons in their galaxy are energy-based, they wouldn't need armor against physical projectiles. But sir, Parker continued, their energy shields are incredibly powerful. I don't think our weapons can penetrate them. Maybe not, Morrison agreed. But let's see how well their shields handle something they've never encountered before. The first shot from the Defiance railgun caught the Zephyrians completely by surprise. They had been expecting energy weapons, lasers, or plasma beams like every other species used. Instead, a solid tungsten projectile traveling at nearly 8% of light speed slammed into their energy shields. The impact sent shockwaves through the Sovereign Dawn. The energy shields, designed to deflect and absorb energy attacks, suddenly had to deal with pure kinetic force. Warning alarms sounded throughout the alien ship as the shields fluctuated and strained. What was that? Admiral Kekstar demanded as his ship shuddered around him. Science Officer Dexmar quickly analyzed the sensor data. Admiral, they fired. A solid projectile at us. A piece of metal traveling at tremendous velocity. A solid projectile? That's impossible. No species has used kinetic weapons for thousands of years. The impact velocity was nearly 8% of light speed, sir. I don't understand how they achieved such acceleration with their primitive technology. Commander Velfax was studying the tactical display with new interest. Their weapon appears to be electromagnetic in nature. They're using magnetic fields to accelerate the projectile. Kekstar felt a moment of uncertainty. In all his years of command, he had never encountered kinetic weapons. The Zephyrians had moved beyond such crude methods millennia ago. Their energy shields were not designed to handle physical impacts of this magnitude. Damage report? He ordered. Shields are holding, but they're fluctuating, reported the damage control officer. Another impact like that could cause problems. On the Defiant, the crew was celebrating their first successful hit. The railgun had worked exactly as designed, and they had actually damaged an alien ship that was supposedly invincible. Direct hit, Captain, Parker called out. Their shields are showing instability. Morrison allowed himself a small smile. Reload and fire again. Target the same section. The second railgun shot struck the exact same spot on the alien shields. This time, the Zephyrian crew felt the impact more strongly. Lights flickered throughout the ship as power was diverted to maintain shield integrity. How are they doing this? Velfax asked in amazement. Their ship is so small, so primitive. How are they generating such destructive force? Admiral Kekstar was beginning to understand that he had underestimated these humans. Their technology might be simple, but it was also effective. They had found a way to turn basic physics into a powerful weapon. Return fire, he ordered. Show them the power of Zephyrian weapons. The Sovereign Dawn's plasma arrays discharged. With devastating force, beams of pure energy lanced across space toward the human ship. When they struck the Defiant's armor, the metal began to glow and melt, but the human ship did not break apart. The steel and ceramic armor that the aliens had dismissed as primitive absorbed and dispersed the energy. The outer hull plates melted and warped, but the ship's structure held. Damage report, Morrison called out as his ship shook around him. Blake's voice came from the engine room. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Armor is holding, but we're losing atmosphere in several sections. Reactor power is stable. Morrison was amazed that his ship was still intact. The alien weapons were incredibly powerful, but human engineering was tougher than anyone had expected. Sir, Foster called from her sensor station, I'm reading more energy buildup on their ship. They're preparing to fire again. Then we fire first, Morrison replied. Murphy, I need everything you've got. In the weapons bay, Carl Murphy was pushing the railgun beyond its design limits. Rivera, reroute power from life support to the magnetic coils. We're going to give these aliens something to remember. The third shot from the Defiant was the most powerful yet. A tungsten projectile, accelerated by overcharged magnetic fields, struck the alien shields with tremendous force. This time, the Zephyrian energy barriers flickered and collapsed entirely for several seconds. Admiral Kekstar felt his ship shake like it had been struck by an asteroid. "Shields are down," called out his tactical officer. "They're regenerating, but slowly." 4. The first time in his long career, Kekstar felt something he had never experienced in battle. He felt respect for his enemy. "These humans," he said quietly, "they're not like the others." The battle was far from over, but already both sides had learned something important. The aliens had discovered that technological superiority meant nothing without tactical innovation. The humans had learned that determination and clever thinking could overcome seemingly impossible odds. In the cold vacuum of space, two very different philosophies of war were about to collide with explosive results. The battle between the two ships had been going on for 20 minutes, and both vessels showed the scars of combat. The Sovereign Dawn's elegant hull was marked with scorch marks where its own energy shields had failed to stop human projectiles. The Defiant looked like it had been through a furnace, with glowing metal and atmosphere venting from several hull breaches. But the human ship was still fighting, and that fact was driving Admiral Kekstar to distraction. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his science officer. "Their ship should have been destroyed 10 times over. Our plasma weapons are melting their hull, but they continue to function." Science Officer Dexmar was studying the sensor readings with fascination. "Admiral, their ship design is remarkable in its simplicity. They have multiple redundant systems throughout the vessel. When we destroy one section, another takes over its function. And their armor? It's crude but effective. Instead of trying to stop our energy weapons, they let the outer layers absorb the damage while protecting the inner structure. It's like wearing multiple layers of clothing in cold weather." Commander Velthax shook his tentacles in amazement. "Their entire approach to warfare is different from ours. We build ships to avoid damage. They build ships to survive damage." Meanwhile, on the Defiant, Captain Morrison was discovering that human innovation worked best under pressure. His crew was adapting to alien technology in real time, finding new ways to use their simple weapons against an advanced enemy. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker from the tactical station, "I've been studying their shield patterns. Their energy barriers are strongest at the front and sides, but weaker at the rear." "Are you suggesting we try to get behind them?" Morrison asked. "No, sir. Our engines aren't fast enough. But I have another idea. What if we don't aim for their shields directly?" Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Parker pulled up a tactical display showing the alien ship's structure. Their shields project outward from the hull in a bubble pattern. But if we could ricochet our projectiles off something else first, we might be able to hit them from an angle they're not protecting. Chief Engineer Tony Blake's voice crackled over the communication system. "Captain, there's an asteroid field, about 30,000 kilometers to starboard. Lots of metallic rocks that could deflect our shots." Morrison grinned. Human creativity was about to meet alien technology in a way the Zephyrians would never expect. "Do it. Plot a ricochet course off the largest asteroid." In the weapons bay, gunner's mate Carl Murphy was having his own moment of inspiration. "Ensign, Paul Rivera had suggested something that went against every safety protocol in the book, but it just might work." "Murphy, what if we linked the capacitors from both railgun systems?" Rivera asked. "We could fire a double-charged shot." Murphy wiped sweat from his forehead. The weapons bay was getting hot from the continuous firing. "That could overload the entire system. We might get one shot before the whole thing explodes, but what a shot it would be." Murphy looked at the young ensign and saw the same determination that was driving the entire crew. "All right, kid. Let's see if we can knock some sense into these aliens." The ricochet shot was a masterpiece of human ingenuity and desperation. The tungsten projectile flew past the Sovereign Dawn, struck a nickel-iron asteroid at precisely the right angle, and bounced back toward the alien ship's unprotected rear section. The Zephyrians never saw it coming. "Impact on stern shields," called out the alien damage control officer. "How is that possible? There's nothing behind us." Admiral Kekstar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. They bounced their projectile off an asteroid? Who thinks of such things? Humans, apparently. Velfax replied with grudging admiration. The impact had caused serious damage to the Sovereign Dawn's rear shield generators. Warning lights flashed throughout the ship as automated. Systems tried to compensate for the loss of defensive coverage, but the humans weren't finished. Murphy and Rivera had succeeded in linking their capacitor systems, creating a weapon that was about to deliver more kinetic energy than the railgun was ever designed to handle. "Captain," Murphy called over the communication system, "we've got one shot that will either win this fight or destroy our weapons completely." Morrison didn't hesitate. "Take it." The double-charged railgun shot was visible to the naked eye as it crossed space toward the alien ship. The tungsten projectile glowed white-hot from the electromagnetic forces that had accelerated it to nearly 10% of light speed. When it struck the Sovereign Dawn's weakened rear shields, the result was catastrophic for the Zephyrians. The energy barriers collapsed completely, and the projectile punched through the ship's hull like it was made of paper. Explosive decompression rocked the alien vessel as atmosphere vented into space. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut throughout. The ship and damage control teams rushed to seal the breach. "Report." Admiral Kekstar shouted over the noise of alarms and emergency systems. "Hull breach in Engineering Section 7, called out the damage control officer. "We've lost 3 shield generators and our secondary power distribution center." For the first time in Zephyrian history, a primitive species had inflicted serious damage on one of their warships. The psychological impact was almost as devastating as the physical damage. "Admiral," Science Officer Dexmar said quietly, "I've been analyzing their combat tactics. They're not fighting like any species we've encountered before." "How so?" "Most races try to match our technology or find ways to defend against our weapons. The humans are doing neither. They're using our expectations against us." Admiral Kekstar studied the human ship on his display. The Defiant was battered and scarred, but it was still there, still fighting. Its crew had taken everything the Zephyrians could throw at them and found a way to strike back. "Sir," Communications Officer Zekelin interrupted. "We are receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it through." Captain Morrison's voice filled the alien bridge. "Admiral Kekstar, this is Captain Morrison. I'm going to give you the same chance you gave us. Withdraw from human space immediately, or we'll continue this fight until one of our ships is destroyed." The audacity of the human captain demanding a Zephyrian withdrawal was staggering. Commander Velfax started to laugh, but the sound died in his throat when he looked at the tactical display. The human ship had damaged them badly. "Should I reply, Admiral?" Zekelin asked. Kekstar was quiet for a long moment. He was reassessing everything he thought he knew about warfare and about these strange creatures called humans. Their ship was smaller, their technology was primitive, and by all logical measures, they should have been defeated within minutes. But logic, he was learning, had very little to do with how humans fought. "Their weapons bay appears to have suffered damage from their last shot," reported Weapons Officer Krendel. "Their main gun may be offline. And our status? We still have superior firepower, Admiral. Our main plasma arrays are undamaged. We could destroy them now." Kekstar looked at the human ship again. It was wounded, and possibly unable to fire its devastating kinetic weapon. The logical choice was to finish the battle and destroy an enemy that had dared to challenge Zephyrian supremacy, but something made him pause. In 20 minutes of combat, these humans had shown more tactical innovation than most species displayed in decades of warfare. They had turned simple physics into an art form of destruction. They had made him, a veteran of 100 battles, feel uncertain about the outcome of a fight. Most importantly, they had never even considered surrender, despite facing impossible odds. "Admiral," Belfax prompted, "your orders?" Kekstar made a decision that would change galactic history. "Hold fire. I want to speak with their captain directly." On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Morrison was preparing for what he assumed would be the final phase of the battle. His ship was badly damaged, his weapons were offline, and his crew was exhausted. But none of them had given up hope. "Captain," Lieutenant Roberts called from communications, "the alien ship is hailing us again." Morrison straightened his uniform, jacket, and prepared to face whatever the aliens had to say. "Put it through." Admiral Kekstar's image appeared on the main screen. The alien looked tired, and Morrison could see battle damage in the background of the alien bridge. "Captain Morrison," Kekstar said slowly, "your species has surprised me today. In 3,000 years of expansion, we have never encountered tactics like yours." Morrison waited for the alien to continue. "I am prepared to discuss terms," Kekstar sighed, "not for your surrender, but for a ceasefire. I believe the Galactic Council needs to meet your people properly." Morrison felt a surge of triumph, but he kept his expression neutral. "As equals, Admiral, not as subjects." There was a long pause before Kekstar responded. "As equals, Captain Morrison. As equals." The silence that followed Admiral Kekstar's words seemed to echo across the vastness of space. On both ships, crews who had been fighting for their lives just moments before now stood in stunned quiet. The impossible had happened. A human ship had fought a Zephyrian dreadnought to a standstill. Captain Morrison looked around his damaged bridge. Smoke still drifted from overloaded circuits, and several of his crew members showed signs of injury from the battle. But they were alive, and they were free. More importantly, they had earned something that no human had ever possessed before: the respect of an advanced alien civilization. "Admiral Kekstar," Morrison said carefully, "I accept your proposal for a ceasefire, but I want to be clear about something. Humanity will never bow to any empire, no matter how powerful. We will defend ourselves and our colonies against any threat." On the Sovereign Dawn, Admiral Kekstar listened to the human captain's words with new understanding. These creatures were not like any species the Zephyrians had encountered before. They possessed a quality that had been missing from galactic civilization for thousands of years: the absolute refusal to accept defeat. "I understand, Captain Morrison," Kekstar replied. "Your point has been made quite effectively." Commander Vilthax approached his admiral quietly. "Sir, what are your intentions?" "The Council will expect a full report on this encounter." Kekstar's tentacles moved in patterns that showed deep thought. "The Council will receive an accurate report. These humans have proven themselves worthy of respect, not conquest." Science Officer Dexmar was still analyzing the tactical data from the battle. "Admiral, I've completed my study of their combat methods. It's remarkable. They use innovation and adaptation as weapons." "Explain." "Most species develop their military technology over centuries, then rely on that technology to win battles. The humans improvised new tactics during the fight itself. They learned from each exchange and modified their approach in real time." Kekstar nodded slowly. "They think like warriors, not just soldiers." On the Defiant, Chief Engineer Tony Blake was giving Captain Morrison a damage report. "Sir, we're in rough shape. Hull breach is on 5 decks. Main weapon system is offline, and we're running on backup power. But the ship is sound. We can make it home." Morrison felt a deep sense of pride in his crew and his ship. The Defiant had been built by human hands, using human technology, and it had proven itself against the most advanced warship in the galaxy. "Captain," Lieutenant Amy Foster called from her sensor station, "I'm detecting movement from the alien ship. They're extending what looks like a communication array." Admiral Kekstar's voice came through the speakers again. "Captain Morrison, I am transmitting our star charts and contact protocols to your ship. Your people will need this information when they meet with the Galactic Council." Morrison was surprised by the alien's generosity. "Why are you helping us?" "Because today you taught me something important," Kekstar replied. "For too long, the galaxy has been ruled by the assumption that advanced technology guarantees victory. You have shown that courage and intelligence are more powerful than any weapon." The data transfer took several minutes. When it was complete, the Defiant possessed information about dozens of alien civilizations, trade routes, and diplomatic protocols that would have taken humanity decades to discover on their own. "There is something else you should know," Kekstar continued. "The Galactic Council consists of 12 major civilizations. We Zephyrians are considered one of the most powerful. Your defeat of our ship will send shockwaves throughout known space." Morrison realized that this battle had implications far beyond the 2 ships involved. What kind of shockwaves? Some species will fear you. Others will want to ally with you. Many will test you as we did today. Your people must be prepared for what comes next. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker was studying the alien star charts that had been transmitted to their ship. "Captain, this data shows the locations of several hostile civilizations. Some of them are even larger than the Zephyrian Confederation." Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders again. The human race had just announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. They had proven they could fight, but now they would have to prove they could survive. "Admiral Kekstar," Morrison said, "what advice would you give to humanity as we enter galactic civilization?" The alien admiral considered this question carefully. "Never lose the qualities that made you victorious today. Your willingness to adapt, your refusal to surrender, and most importantly, your ability to innovate under pressure. These traits are rare in the galaxy. And what about the Zephyrian Confederation? Will you be our enemies or our allies?" Kekstar's image showed what might have been a smile, though it was difficult to tell with alien features. "Captain Morrison, any species that can damage my ship with primitive kinetic weapons is a species I want as an ally, not an enemy." The formal first contact protocols took another hour to complete. Both ships exchanged basic information about their governments, their territories, and their intentions. The Zephyrians were surprised to learn that humanity had no empire, no single ruler, and no unified military command. Earth was governed by a collection of nations that somehow managed to work together when necessary. "How do you make decisions without a central authority?" Commander Velthax asked during one of the transmissions. Morrison smiled. "Very slowly and with a lot of arguments. But when we finally agree on something, the entire human race stands behind it." As the diplomatic exchanges continued, both crews began the process of repairing their ships. The Zephyrians used advanced nanotechnology to rebuild damaged sections of their hull. The humans relied on welding torches, metal patches, and old-fashioned engineering skill. But both approaches worked, and both crews took pride in their methods. Finally, Admiral Kekstar made one last transmission to the human ship. "Captain Morrison, I will be reporting to the Galactic Council that humanity is ready for formal contact. I recommend that your people prepare ambassadors and establish a unified position for galactic relations." "We'll be ready," Morrison replied. "And Admiral, thank you for giving us the chance to prove ourselves." Thank you for reminding an old warrior what real courage looks like. The two ships separated slowly, each heading back toward their home territories. The Sovereign Dawn would carry news of humanity's existence to the galactic capital. The Defiant would return to Earth with proof that humans could hold their own among the stars. But the battle had changed both crews in ways they were only beginning to understand. The Zephyrians had learned that technological superiority meant nothing without the will to use it creatively. The humans had learned that determination and innovation could overcome seemingly impossible odds. As Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the alien ship disappear into the distance, he knew that humanity's future among the stars would be challenging. There would be other battles, other tests, and other species who would underestimate human resolve. But today had proven something important. Humans belonged in the galaxy not because of their technology or their weapons, but because of their spirit. They had the courage to face the unknown, the wisdom to adapt when faced with superior force, and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun with the sound of railgun fire and the clash of two very different philosophies of war. And in the end, it was not the most advanced technology that had won the day. It was the simple, powerful idea that some things are worth fighting for, no matter what the odds. 6 months later, when the Defiant limped into Earth orbit with its battle scars still visible, the entire human race would learn what their representatives had accomplished. The story of the battle would be told and retold, inspiring a generation of humans to reach for the stars. But that day belonged to the future. For now, Captain Jake Morrison and his crew had done something that would echo through galactic history. They had announced humanity's arrival in the cosmos, not with words or treaties, but with the thunderous declaration that Earth's children would never kneel to anyone. The galaxy would never be the same. The cold void of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Stars dotted the black canvas like tiny diamonds, their light traveling for millions of years to reach this forgotten corner of the galaxy. Here, in the outer rim of the Kepler system, something dark and silent drifted between the planets. The ship was massive. Nearly 2 miles long and half a mile wide, it moved through space like a sleeping giant. Its hull was scarred with blast marks and holes. Pieces of metal floated around it like a cloud of debris. To anyone who saw it, the vessel looked dead. It had been floating here for 37 years without moving, without sending any signals, without showing any signs of life. Commander Vextar clicked his sharp beak as he studied the readings on his scanner. The bird-like alien stood 7 feet tall, his blue and green feathers ruffled with excitement. His yellow eyes gleamed as he looked at the massive human ship on his screen. "Look at this piece of junk," he squawked to his crew. The humans thought they could build warships. What a joke. His bridge crew laughed. They were all Zephyrians, a race of intelligent bird people who had joined the great alliance that wiped out humanity decades ago. Now they made their living as salvage crews, picking through the remains of dead civilizations. "Sir, our scans show the ship is completely dead," reported his second officer, a smaller Zephyrian with bright red feathers. "No power, no life signs, no active systems, just floating scrap metal." Vextar nodded. "Perfect. We'll strip it clean and sell the parts." Human technology was primitive, but some collectors still pay good money for their weapons and engines. The Zephyrian commander had heard stories about humans. They were a young race that had spread too fast across the galaxy. The older alien. Species got nervous when humans started building colonies and making friends with other races. So the Hegemony Alliance was formed. 6 powerful alien species working together with one goal: remove the human threat forever. It took them only 5 years to hunt down every human ship and destroy every human colony. Or so they thought. The war ended with humanity's complete defeat. No survivors, no refugees, no hidden bases. The human race was extinct. Begin docking procedures, Vextar ordered. Send boarding teams to sections 1 through 12. I want a full inventory of everything valuable on that ship. Deep inside the dead human vessel, something stirred. In a room buried at the heart of the ship, thousands of tiny lights began to blink. Screens that had been dark for decades suddenly glowed with soft blue light. Data streams flowed across displays as systems came online one by one. Aria had been waiting. The ship's artificial intelligence had a name that meant Adaptive Response Intelligence Agent. For 37 years, she had been playing dead. Her sensors had been watching space around the ship. Her communication arrays had been listening to alien radio signals. Her memory banks had been recording everything. Now aliens were coming aboard. Aria ran quick calculations and made her decision. It was time to wake up Captain Morrison. In the medical bay, hundreds of white pods lined the walls. Inside each pod, a human body floated in blue liquid, kept alive by advanced life support systems. The pods looked like coffins to outsiders, but they were actually the most advanced sleep chambers ever built. Aria sent a gentle signal to pod number 1. Slowly, very slowly, the liquid began to drain. The pod's lid opened with a soft hiss. Inside, a man opened his eyes for the first time in 37 years. Captain Jake Morrison was 45 years old when he went to sleep. The sleep chambers had kept his body from aging, so he still looked exactly the same. He had short brown hair, calm green eyes, and the steady look of someone who had commanded starships for 20 years. Morrison sat up slowly and took a deep breath. The air tasted stale, but good. He could feel his muscles waking up as the sleep drugs left his system. "Status report, Aria," he said quietly. The AI's voice filled the medical bay. It sounded like a woman, calm and professional. "Captain, we have visitors. A Zephyrian salvage fleet has found us. They believe we are a derelict ship. 3 boarding parties are preparing to enter through airlocks 7, 12, and 15. Morrison smiled. It was not a happy smile. "How long have we been asleep?" 37 years, 4 months, and 16 days, Captain. "Any word from Earth?" "Negative, sir. Radio silence continues as planned." Morrison stood up and walked to a wall panel. He pressed his hand against it, and a hidden compartment opened. Inside was his uniform, cleaned and pressed, waiting for him just as he had left it decades ago. "Aria, begin wake-up procedures for senior staff only. Keep it quiet. I want Morrison, Park, Bell, Mills, Scott, Rodriguez, and Clark awake within the hour." "Understood, Captain. What about the boarding parties?" Morrison pulled on his uniform and checked himself in a mirror. He looked exactly like the man who had gone to sleep 37 years ago, ready to save humanity from extinction. "Let them come aboard," he said. "Let them think they found a dead human ship full of primitive technology. Let them feel safe while they're stealing from what they think is a tomb." Morrison walked to the door of the medical bay. Through the ship's internal sensors, he could see the alien salvage teams preparing their equipment. They had no idea what they were really walking into. "Aria, maintain all deception protocols. Keep the ship looking dead. But start warming up our real systems. After 37 years of playing dead, I think it's time to remind the galaxy that humans are very hard to kill." The captain walked through dark corridors toward the bridge, his footsteps silent on the metal floor. Behind him, more sleep pods began to open as his crew slowly awakened. Above him, alien ships prepared to dock with what they thought was an abandoned wreck. None of them knew that they were about to learn why the other alien races had been so afraid of humanity in the first place. Captain Morrison walked through the dark hallways of his ship, his boots making no sound on the metal floor. Emergency lights cast a red glow every few feet, just enough to see by. The ship felt cold and empty, exactly the way it was supposed. To look to outside sensors. He reached the bridge and sat in his captain's chair. The command center was completely dark, except for one small screen that showed the approaching alien ships. Morrison watched as the Zephyrian vessels moved closer to his ship, like vultures circling a dead animal. "Arya, show me what they're saying to each other." The AI's voice came from speakers around the bridge. "Yes, Captain. I've been monitoring their communications." A new voice filled the bridge, speaking in the harsh clicking language of the Zephyrians. Arya translated the words into English as they spoke. "This human ship is even bigger than our reports said," one alien was saying. "Look at all those weapon ports. No wonder the Alliance was worried about these creatures." Another voice laughed. "Worried? About this junk? My grandfather's cargo hauler has better armor than this thing." Humans were all talk and no action. Morrison's jaw tightened as he listened. These aliens had no idea what they were really looking at. The weapon ports they could see were just the obvious ones. The real weapons were hidden behind panels that looked like normal hull plating. "Captain," Arya sighed, "Lieutenant Commander Park is awake and requesting permission to come to the bridge. Send her up and keep waking the others." A few minutes later, Lisa Park entered the bridge. She was a tall woman with black hair and sharp blue eyes. As the ship's tactical officer, she knew every weapon system on the vessel better than anyone except Morrison himself. "Sir, it's good to see you again," Park said as she took her position at the weapons console. "Arya briefed me on our situation. How do you want to play this?" Morrison stood and walked to the main view screen. Outside, he could see the alien ships, getting ready to dock. The same way we planned it 37 years ago. We let them come aboard. We let them think they're looting a dead ship. And we gather as much intelligence as we can about what's been happening in the galaxy since we went to sleep. Park nodded and began quietly activating her systems. The weapons console looked completely dead from the outside, but she was actually bringing the ship's most powerful guns online. "Sir, I have to ask, do you think the plan worked? Do you think Earth is safe?" "We'll find out soon enough," Morrison replied. "But I have faith in Admiral Carter. If anyone could pull off the greatest magic trick in human history, it's her." More crew members began arriving on the bridge. Chief Engineer Ryan Bell came up from the engine rooms. He was a big man with gray hair and hands that were always dirty from working on machines. Dr. Kate Mills arrived from the science labs, her red hair tied back and her green eyes bright with curiosity. One by one, Morrison's senior staff took their positions. "Status report," Morrison ordered. Bell spoke first. "All primary systems are running normally, Captain. The fusion reactors have been in standby mode for 37 years, but they're ready to go to full power on your command. The engines will need about 10 minutes to warm up, but after that, we'll have full maneuverability." Dr. Mills checked her science station. "Long-range sensors are coming online now, sir. I'm detecting significant changes in galactic politics. Since we went to sleep, the Hegemony Alliance has expanded. They now control most of the inner systems." "Any signs of other human ships?" Morrison asked. "Not yet, sir, but I'm only scanning this sector. It will take time to check the locations where the other sleeper ships were supposed to be hidden." Morrison nodded. The plan had been simple but dangerous. When Earth's government realized that the alien alliance was going to attack humanity, they had secretly prepared for the worst. Dozens of human ships like the Valiant had been sent to different parts of the galaxy with volunteer crews. Each ship was equipped with advanced stealth technology and enough supplies to stay hidden for decades. The idea was that even if Earth fell, these sleeper ships would survive. They would wait and watch and learn. Then, When the time was right, they would reveal themselves and show the galaxy that humanity was far from extinct. "Arya," Morrison said, "show me the docking process." The main screen changed to show the alien ships attaching to his vessel's hull. Morrison could see Zephyrian soldiers in spacesuits, preparing to cut through his airlocks. They carried primitive weapons and simple scanning tools. They clearly expected no resistance from a dead ship. "Sir," Park said, "should I activate the defensive systems?" "Not yet. Let them come aboard. But I want you to track every alien that enters this ship. If things go wrong, I want to be able to disable them all within 30 seconds. The first alien boarding party entered through airlock 7. Morrison watched on the security screens as 3 Zephyrians stepped into his ship. They moved carefully, weapons ready, but they looked more excited than nervous. The aliens started down the main corridor, heading toward what they thought was the ship's command center. Morrison smiled. They were actually walking toward a fake bridge that had been built just for situations like this. The real bridge was hidden deep inside the ship, protected by armor that could stop almost any weapon. "Look at this," one of the aliens said as they walked. "The humans built everything so big. What a waste of materials. Primitive construction." Another agreed. "No wonder they lost the war so quickly." Morrison felt his anger rising, but he forced himself to stay calm. These aliens had helped murder billions of innocent people. But getting angry now would not help anything. He needed information more than revenge. "Arya, are you recording everything they say and do?" "Yes, Captain. I'm also scanning their equipment and analyzing their technology. Interesting findings so far, such as their weapons and tools are actually less advanced than they were 37 years ago. It appears that with humans gone, galactic technological progress has slowed significantly." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "They've been going backwards?" "In some areas, yes. Human scientists were apparently driving a lot of innovation in the galaxy. Without that competition, the other races have become comfortable with their existing technology." More alien boarding parties entered the ship. Soon Morrison had 12 Zephyrians wandering through his corridors, examining what they thought were primitive human systems. They had no idea that every step they took was being recorded, every word they spoke was being analyzed, and every piece of equipment they carried was being studied by the ship's advanced computers. Dr. Mills looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm getting some very interesting readings from their ships. Their engine design is almost identical to what we saw 37 years ago. Same with their shields and weapons. It's like they stopped trying to improve anything." "Chief," Bell grunted, "makes sense. Humans always pushed everyone else to do better. Take away the competition and people get lazy." Morrison watched the aliens on his screens. They were now examining what they thought was the ship's main computer core. In reality, it was just a collection of spare parts arranged to look important. The real computer systems were hidden behind walls that looked like normal ship structure. "Sir," Park said quietly, "I count 47 more alien ships in this sector. Long-range scans show they're all salvage operations, picking through old battlefields. They're treating this entire region like a junkyard." Morrison felt sick. This had been human space once. These systems had been home to billions of people. Now aliens were stripping the bones of dead colonies and selling them for scrap. "Arya, how long before we can safely reveal ourselves?" "I recommend waiting until we have complete intelligence on current galactic conditions, Captain. I estimate 6 more hours to fully analyze their technology and communications. We should also attempt to contact other sleeper ships before taking any action." Morrison nodded. He had waited 37 years. He could wait a few more hours. On the security screens, the alien boarding parties continued their exploration. They had no idea that the ghost ship they were looting was actually very much alive and very much angry. The alien boarding parties had been inside the ship for 2 hours now. Commander Vextar watched from his own vessel as his team spread through the human ship, cataloging everything they found. So far, the operation was going exactly as planned. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "Team 3 reports they found the ship's main power core. It's completely dead, just like the rest of the ship." Vextar nodded his feathered head. "Good. What about the weapon systems?" "Team 1 says the gun batteries are primitive. Ancient plasma cannons and basic missile tubes. Nothing impressive." On the human ship, Captain Morrison watched the aliens through hidden cameras. He had to admit they were thorough. The Zephyrians were taking detailed scans of everything they saw, making notes about human technology and construction methods. "Arya," Morrison said quietly, "it's time to start the psychological phase. Begin with subtle system malfunctions." "Understood, Captain." Beginning low-level harassment protocols. The first sign of trouble came from Team 2, which was exploring the ship's lower decks. The lead Zephyrian, a soldier named Crix, was examining what looked like a human weapons locker when the lights in the corridor began to flicker. "Strange," Crix muttered, looking around. "The power should be completely dead." His scanner showed no energy readings from the ship's systems, but the lights continued to flicker in a slow, steady pattern. On, off, like the ship was trying to send some kind of message. Crix reported the incident to his commander, who told him to ignore it. Old ships sometimes had power fluctuations in their emergency systems. It was nothing to worry about, but Arya was just getting started. Team 3 was in what they thought was the ship's computer center when their equipment began acting up. Scanners that had been working perfectly started giving strange readings. Communication devices filled with static. One soldier's helmet display began showing text in a human language none of them could read. "Team leader to command," the squad leader called. "We're having some technical difficulties down here." "What kind of difficulties?" Vextar asked. "Our gear is malfunctioning. Scanners, communicators, everything. It started about 10 minutes ago." Dr. Kate Mills smiled as she watched from the Yacht. Real command center. She was monitoring the aliens' equipment through the ship's sensors, watching as Arya subtly interfered with their electronics. It was like watching a master artist at work. "Arya, increase the intensity slowly. I want them confused, not panicked." "Acknowledged, Dr. Mills." The next phase began when Team 1 reached what they thought was the ship's bridge. The fake command center looked exactly like what the aliens expected from human technology: big, clunky control panels and primitive displays. But as they started examining the equipment, things got strange. The main view screen suddenly turned on, showing nothing but static. Then the static formed patterns, like faces in the snow. The aliens stared at the screen, trying to figure out what they were seeing. "Is that ... Is that supposed to be doing that?" one soldier asked. Before anyone could answer, they heard something that made their feathers stand on end. Whispers, soft voices speaking in human languages, coming from the ship's communication system. The words were too quiet to understand, but they sounded like conversations, like the ship was somehow playing back recordings of its dead crew. Team 1's leader tried to contact Commander Vextar, but his radio was filled with static. In the static, he could swear he heard human voices talking about battle plans and weapon systems. On his ship, Vextar was getting worried. His teams had been reporting minor problems for the past hour, and now communications were becoming difficult. His technical officer assured him that their equipment was working fine, but something was definitely interfering with their signals. "Sir," his second officer said, "I'm reading some unusual energy patterns from the human ship." "What kind of patterns?" "I'm not sure. Our sensors show the ship is still completely dead, but there are some very faint electromagnetic fluctuations. They're too weak to be active systems. But double quotes. But what? Well, sir, they're getting stronger. Inside the human ship, Sergeant Tony Rodriguez was having the time of his life. As the ship's security chief, he had spent years training for covert operations. Now he was finally getting to use those skills. Rodriguez was a compact man with black hair and quick brown eyes. He could move through the ship's maintenance tunnels without making a sound, and he knew every secret passage and hidden room on the vessel. While the aliens wandered through the main corridors, he was following them like a ghost. "Aria," he whispered into his throat microphone. "I'm in position behind Team 2, ready to begin physical harassment. Proceed, Sergeant. Keep it subtle." Rodriguez smiled and activated a small device. The aliens were examining a storage room when they heard a sound behind them. A soft metallic clank, like someone dropping a tool. They turned around, weapons ready, but saw nothing. "Did you hear that?" one of them asked. "Probably just the ship." "Settling," another replied. "These old hulks make all kinds of noise." But the sounds continued. Footsteps in empty corridors. Doors closing in distant parts of the ship. The soft hum of machinery that shouldn't be working. Each sound was faint enough that the aliens could almost convince themselves they were imagining. Dr. Mills was monitoring the aliens' vital signs through the ship's sensors. "Captain, their stress levels are rising. Heart rate's up, brain activity showing signs of anxiety. The psychological pressure is working." Morrison nodded. "Good. But I want them to feel uneasy, not terrified. We need them to keep exploring." Commander Vextar was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. His boarding teams were reporting more and more problems. Equipment failures, strange sounds, mysterious energy readings. One team had even claimed to see movement in the shadows, though. Their cameras showed nothing. "Sir," his technical officer said, "I think we should recall the boarding parties. Something isn't right about this ship." Vextar's pride made him hesitate. He was an experienced salvage operator. He had explored hundreds of dead ships. He wasn't going to be scared away by a few technical glitches. Negative, he decided. Continue the operation. We've come too far to turn back now. But his confidence took a hit when Team 3 made an unexpected discovery. They had been exploring what they thought was a storage area when one of the soldiers noticed something odd about the wall. The metal plating looked different, newer somehow. "Commander, you need to see this," the team leader reported. "We've found a section that doesn't match our scans." "What do you mean?" "The wall here. It's not on our blueprints. It's like there's a whole room behind it that our sensors can't detect." Vextar felt his stomach tighten. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. And there's something else. This wall section is warm, like there's active machinery behind it." Inside the hidden command center, Morrison exchanged glances with his officers. The aliens had found one of the ship's concealed sections. It was bound to happen eventually, but it still made him nervous. "Aria, seal all other hidden areas. Route power around that section to make it look inactive." "Already done, Captain. However, I should point out that if they continue exploring systematically, they will eventually find more concealed areas." Dr. Mills looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm reading elevated stress hormones in all the boarding party members. They know something is wrong, but they can't figure out what." Sergeant Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system. "Sir, I'm seeing some of them getting jumpy. Team 1 keeps looking over their shoulders like they think someone's following them." Morrison made a decision. "Rodriguez, make yourself visible to one of them, just for a second. Let them think they saw something." "With pleasure, sir." Rodriguez positioned himself at the end of a corridor where Team 2 was working. When one of the aliens turned around, Rodriguez stepped into view for just a moment before disappearing into a maintenance hatch. The alien soldier froze. "There's someone on this ship," he whispered into his radio. "What did you say?" his team leader asked. "I saw someone. A human. He was right there at the end of the corridor." "That's impossible. This ship has been dead for decades." "I know what I saw." The alien soldier raised his weapon and moved carefully down the corridor. His scanner showed no life signs, no heat signatures, nothing. But he had definitely seen a figure in what looked like a human military uniform. Commander Vextar listened to the report with growing alarm. His soldiers were trained professionals. They didn't imagine things or panic easily. If one of them said he saw someone, then something was definitely wrong. "All teams, report status immediately," he ordered. The responses he got made him even more worried. Team 1 reported electronic equipment behaving strangely. Team 2 confirmed possible human presence. Team 3 had found ship sections that didn't appear on any scans. For the first time since entering the human ship, Vextar began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. Commander Vextar paced back and forth on his bridge, his sharp claws clicking against the metal floor. The reports from his boarding teams were getting stranger by the hour. Equipment failures, mysterious sounds, possible human sightings, none of it made sense. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "I'm having trouble maintaining contact with our teams. There's some kind of interference coming from the human ship." "What kind of interference?" "I'm not sure. It's like something is jamming our signals, but our sensors show no active transmitters on that ship." Vextar's feathers ruffled with anxiety. In 30 years of salvage operations, he had never encountered anything like this. Dead ships stayed dead. They didn't start interfering with communications or playing tricks on boarding parties. Inside the human vessel, Captain Morrison made his final preparations. His crew was fully awake now, positioned at stations throughout the ship. Chief Engineer Bell had the engines ready for full power. Lieutenant Commander Park had all weapon systems online but hidden. Dr. Mills was monitoring every alien movement through the ship's sensors. "Aria," Morrison said, "open a channel to the Zephyrian commander. It's time to introduce ourselves." "They." AI's voice was calm and professional. "Channel open, Captain." Morrison activated the main view screen in the fake bridge where Team 1 was still exploring. The aliens jumped back as the screen suddenly came to life, showing the face of a human man in a military uniform. "Good afternoon," Morrison said pleasantly. "Welcome aboard the UE Salient. I am Captain Jake Morrison, commanding officer of this vessel." The alien soldiers stared at the screen in shock. One of them raised his weapon, but his team leader held up a hand to stop him. "That's impossible," the team leader said. "This ship has been dead for decades. You're all extinct." Morrison smiled. "Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated. Aria, please establish communication with Commander Vextar." On the Zephyrian command ship, every alarm started ringing at once. The main view screen activated without anyone touching it, showing the same human face that his boarding teams were seeing. "Commander Vextar," Morrison said, "I believe your people are guests on my ship. I think it's time we had a proper conversation." Vextar's yellow eyes went wide. "This is impossible. Humans are extinct. We destroyed your entire species." "Did you?" Morrison asked. "Let me show you something interesting." The screen split to show dozens of other view screens. On each one, a different human face appeared. Men and women in military uniforms, all looking directly at Vextar. All very much alive. "Captain Morrison to all sleeper vessels," Morrison announced. "Report status." One by one, the other human captains responded. Captain Amy Scott, UE's Defiant. Awake and operational. Captain Ben Clark, UE's Guardian, All systems green. Captain Tony Rodriguez, use vengeance. Ready for orders. The list went on and on. 37 ships. 37 crews that had been hiding in different parts of the galaxy for nearly 4 decades. Vexstar felt his legs go weak. How many of you are there? Morrison's expression became serious. Enough. Arya, show him the truth. The view screen changed to show historical footage from 37 years ago. It showed human ships being destroyed, human colonies burning, human refugees fleeing through space. But then the images changed to show something else entirely. What you're seeing now, Morrison explained, is what really happened during your so-called victory. While your alliance was hunting down our military fleets, humanity was evacuating. Every man, woman, and child was moved to secret colonies beyond the galactic rim. The footage showed massive transport ships carrying millions of people to hidden worlds. It showed the construction of new cities on planets that didn't appear on any star charts. It showed humanity not dying, but relocating. The ships you destroyed were mostly empty, Morrison continued. The colonies you burned were already evacuated. We gave you what you wanted to see, the death of humanity. But it was all an illusion. Dr. Mills stepped into view on the screen. Commander, I'm Dr. Kate Mills, xenobiologist. For the past 37 years, I've been studying your species and your allies. I know more about Zephyrian culture than most. Zephyrians do. She activated her own screen, showing detailed biological scans of Vexstar and his crew. I know that your people were forced into the Hegemony Alliance against your will. I know that your government was threatened with destruction if you didn't participate in the war against humanity. Vexstar's beak opened in shock. Those facts were supposed to be classified. How could this human know about secret political deals? Made decades ago? Communications Officer Ben Clark appeared on another part of the screen. Sir, we've been monitoring galactic communications for 37 years. We know everything that's been happening since the war. Every political deal, every military operation, every secret treaty. We've been watching, Morrison said quietly. We've been learning, and we've been preparing. Chief Engineer Bell joined the conversation. Commander, take a look at your sensor readings. What do you see when you scan our ship? Vexstar checked his instruments. They still showed a dead vessel with no active systems. I see nothing. No power, no life signs, no active technology. Bell smiled. Now watch this. The entire human ship suddenly blazed with light. Power readings shot off the scale. Weapon. Systems that hadn't appeared on any scans suddenly became visible. The vessel that had looked like a floating wreck transformed into one of the most advanced warships Vexstar had ever seen. Adaptive camouflage technology, Bell explained. We've been running on full power this entire time. You just couldn't see it. Morrison stood up from his captain's chair. Commander Vexstar, your boarding parties are currently surrounded by my security teams. They are in no immediate danger, but they are completely under our control. Your ships are outnumbered and outgunned. What happens next is entirely up to you. Vexstar looked at his tactical displays. His sensors were finally showing the truth. The human ship was bristling with weapons that could destroy his entire salvage fleet within minutes. Worse, his long-range scanners were detecting more human vessels appearing throughout the sector. What do you want? Vexstar asked quietly. Morrison's expression became deadly serious. Justice. For 37 years, the galaxy has believed that humanity committed some terrible crime that justified our extinction. But we have evidence that proves otherwise. Dr. Mills activated another screen, showing classified documents from the Hegemony Alliance. These are your own military records, Commander. They detail the planning of humanity's destruction. They show that we were targeted not because we had done anything wrong, but because the older races were afraid of our potential. The documents scrolled past on the screen. Battle plans, population estimates, discussions about how to completely eliminate human civilization. All signed by leaders of the 6 Alliance species. We weren't a threat to anyone, Morrison said. We were explorers and traders. We made friends with dozens of alien species. We shared our technology and culture freely. But apparently, that made us dangerous. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Amy Scott appeared on the screen. Captain Morrison, I've completed my analysis of the boarding party members. Their genetic profiles match our records. These individuals were not involved in the original war crimes. Morrison nodded. Commander Vextar, according to our records, the Zephyrian Republic was coerced into joining the Alliance. Your people didn't want to participate in genocide, but you were threatened with destruction if you refused. Vextar's feathers drooped. It was true. His government had tried to stay neutral, but the other Alliance members had made it clear that any species not supporting the war would be considered an enemy. That doesn't excuse what we did, Vextar said quietly. No, it doesn't, Morrison agreed. But it does mean we might be able to work together to fix it. Lieutenant Commander Park stepped forward. Sir, I'm reading massive hyperspace signatures throughout the sector. Looks like someone called for help. Morrison smiled grimly. Aria, identify the approaching vessels. Alliance military forces, Captain. 12 battleships and 40 escort vessels. They will arrive in approximately 1 hour. Vextar looked panicked. I didn't call for military support. That signal went out automatically when we lost contact with our teams. Morrison sat back down in his chair. Well, Commander, it looks like you have a choice to make. You can stand with the Alliance that forced you into committing genocide, or you can stand with the species they tried to destroy. He leaned forward, his green eyes intense. Because I can promise you this, those Alliance ships are not coming here to rescue your people. They're coming to destroy any evidence that humanity survived, including your entire salvage fleet. On his tactical display, Vextar could see the approaching Alliance warships. Morrison was right. Those vessels were armed for battle, not rescue. His salvage ships wouldn't stand a chance against military-grade weapons. What are you proposing? Vextar asked. Morrison stood up again. Help us prove to the galaxy what really happened 37 years ago. Help us show everyone that the Hegemony Alliance committed genocide against an innocent species. Help us make sure it never happens again. The view screen showed all 37 human ships now, spread across multiple star systems. Each one was revealing its true capabilities, dropping the disguises they had maintained. Commander Vextar stared at the view screen, his mind racing. Around him, his bridge crew waited in tense silence. The approaching Alliance fleet would arrive in less than an hour, and he had to make the most important decision of his life. Commander, his tactical officer whispered, our long-range sensors are detecting something else. More ships dropping out of hyperspace near the Alliance fleet. Identify them, Vextar ordered. The answer came back quickly. Sir, they're human vessels. Dozens of them. They're taking positions to intercept the Alliance forces. On the main screen, Captain Morrison nodded grimly. Commander, I should mention that we weren't the only part of humanity's survival plan. While we were sleeping and watching, other human fleets have been very busy. The screen changed to show the tactical situation throughout the sector. Vextar counted over 100 human ships, all much more advanced than anything in the Alliance records. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single massive organism. A new face appeared on the screen. A woman with gray hair and steel blue eyes, wearing an admiral's uniform. Commander Vextar, the woman said, I am Admiral Helen Carter, commanding the Free Human Fleet. 37 years ago, I was in charge of humanity's evacuation and survival operations. Vexstar had heard that name before. Carter had been mentioned in Alliance intelligence reports as one of humanity's most dangerous military leaders. She was supposed to be dead. "Admiral," Morrison said, "the commander here has a choice to make." Carter nodded. "Commander Vexstar, your species has a reputation for honor and fairness. Before the war, Zephyrians and humans traded peacefully for over a century. Our people respected each other." She paused, letting that sink in. "I know your government was forced into the Alliance. I know your people didn't want to participate in genocide. But you did participate, and that has consequences." The Admiral activated another screen, showing massive space stations and industrial complexes. "This is what humanity has been building for 37 years. New worlds, new technologies, new alliances with species that the Hegemony Alliance has oppressed." Vexstar saw cities that dwarfed anything in Alliance space. Ships that looked like they came from a civilization 1,000 years more advanced. Millions of humans living and working in freedom. "We could have returned years ago," Carter continued. "We could have launched a war of revenge against every species that participated in our attempted destruction. But that's not who we are." Morrison stepped forward. "Instead, we chose to gather evidence. For 37 years, we've been documenting every crime committed by the Hegemony Alliance. Every forced annexation, every genocide, every act of oppression." Dr. Mills activated her displays, showing file after file of classified Alliance documents. "We have records of 16 different species that have been wiped out since humanity's defeat. Races that asked too many questions or refused to submit to Alliance control. The evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings of Alliance leaders planning attacks on innocent worlds. Documents describing the systematic destruction of entire civilizations. Proof that the Alliance had become exactly the kind of galactic tyranny they had accused humanity of wanting to create. "Commander," Admiral Carter said, "we're offering you a chance to be on the right side of history. Help us expose the truth, and we'll help you rebuild Zephyrian independence." Vexstar's communications officer looked up nervously. "Sir, the Alliance fleet is demanding we respond to their signals. They want a full report on our situation." Through the human ship's view screen, Vexstar could see his own boarding parties. They were sitting calmly in what looked like a comfortable lounge area, being served food and drinks by human crew members. They didn't look like prisoners. They looked like guests. "Your people are safe," Morrison assured him. "They're actually having quite interesting conversations with my crew. Turns out, ordinary Zephyrians and ordinary humans get along just fine when politicians aren't telling them to kill each other." Sergeant Rodriguez appeared on screen, standing next to one of the Zephyrian soldiers. "Sir, these guys are asking some really good questions about what actually happened during the war. I think they're starting to understand they were lied to." Vexstar made his decision. "Admiral Carter," he said, "what do you need from me?" The Admiral smiled. "First, we need you to tell the approaching Alliance fleet that your salvage operation found nothing valuable. Tell them the human ship is completely stripped and worthless. And then you help us arrange a meeting with the Galactic Council. We have evidence to present, and we want the whole galaxy to see it." Vexstar nodded and turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to the Alliance fleet. Tell them we found a derelict human vessel with no salvageable materials. Recommend they continue to their next patrol area." As his officer sent the message, Vexstar watched the tactical display. The human ships were spreading out in formation, but they weren't taking aggressive positions. They looked ready to fight if necessary, but they seemed to prefer avoiding a battle. "Admiral," Vexstar asked, "what if the Alliance refuses to listen? What if they try to attack you?" Carter's expression became cold. "Then they'll learn why they were so afraid of humanity in the first place. The main screen changed to show the Alliance fleet receiving Vextar's message. For several tense minutes, the warships held their position. Then, slowly, they began turning away from the sector. "They're leaving," Vextar's tactical officer reported. "All Alliance vessels are jumping to hyperspace." Morrison sat back in his chair. "Good. We'd rather not start a war today." "But you could have won," Vextar said. "Your ships clearly outclass anything the Alliance has." Admiral Carter nodded. "Yes, we could have destroyed that fleet easily, but that would have made us the aggressors. We want the galaxy to see us as we really are, a peaceful species that was nearly destroyed by those who claim to be protecting." Galactic Peace. Chief Engineer Bell appeared on screen. "Commander, you should know that human technology has advanced considerably since the war. We've had 37 years to develop new systems without interference. Our ships can do things that Alliance scientists think are impossible." To demonstrate, the entire human fleet suddenly vanished from sensors. Vextar's crew scrambled to find them, but every scanner showed empty space. "Adaptive stealth technology," Bell explained as the ships reappeared. "We can hide from any sensor system currently in use. We've been watching Alliance movements for decades without being detected." Dr. Mills added her own demonstration. "We've also developed technology that allows us to survive in any environment. Human colonies now exist on worlds that Alliance species consider completely uninhabitable." The evidence kept mounting. Humanity hadn't just survived, they had thrived. They had become more advanced, more capable, and more united than ever before. "Commander," Admiral Carter said, "we're going to contact the Galactic Council now. We're going to present our evidence and demand justice for the crimes committed against humanity and other species." "What about my people?" Vextar asked. "What about the Zephyrian Republic?" Morrison smiled. "We remember our old friendship with your species. We're prepared to offer the Zephyrian Republic full independence from the Hegemony Alliance, plus access to human technology and trade agreements. All we ask in return," Carter added, "is that you help us make sure genocide never happens again in this galaxy." Vextar looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. He thought about his home world, about his people living under Alliance control, about the fear that had dominated galactic politics for 37 years. "Admiral Carter," he said, "the Zephyrian Republic accepts your offer." The main screen changed one final time, showing communication channels opening all across the galaxy. Human voices began broadcasting on every frequency, speaking to every inhabited world. "People of the galaxy," Admiral Carter announced, "this is Admiral Helen Carter of the Free Human Fleet. We are transmitting from multiple locations throughout known space. As you can see, reports of humanity's extinction were false. The broadcasts showed human ships, human colonies, human cities. Millions of people who were supposed to be dead, all very much alive and thriving. For 37 years, we have been gathering evidence of crimes committed by the Hegemony Alliance. Today, we present that evidence to the Galactic Council and demand justice." Document after document appeared on screens across the galaxy. The truth about the war, about the genocide, about the Alliance's other crimes. Everything the people of the galaxy had never been allowed to see. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, watching as the broadcasts spread from system to system. "Aria, are you monitoring galactic communications?" "Yes, Captain. Initial reactions are mixed, but there's significant support for our position. Many species are expressing outrage at the evidence we've presented." Lieutenant Commander Park looked up from her station. "Sir, I'm detecting ships from multiple non-Alliance species moving toward the galactic capital." "Looks like they want to hear more." Morrison nodded. "Good. The truth has a way of spreading once it starts." Commander Vexstar watched from his own ship as history changed around him. The galaxy would never be the same after today. The Hegemony Alliance's reign of fear was ending, and a new era was beginning. Captain Morrison,